Okay, the next one in the list for science is Project 312, and we're seeking a total of 40,000 to be carried forward to complete two elements of work, one of which was delayed by the unavailability of the Niwa Lake SPI team, which was doing the work, the submerged plant indicator monitoring work, and it just means that we won't have access to them as a group of contractors until December 2016. And in the case of the Tucky Tucky catchment temperature modelling, the delay was caused by some discussion with internally and externally on the best manner in which to implement the work programme, and with the other pressures of work at the time, it meant we missed the window of opportunity for doing the monitoring, which has to happen in spring and summer. So we'd anticipate doing that in spring and summer 16-17.
I've got a question for Paul. And that is that we've got down here, see 35% of the 40 grand is 14,000. You go down, you see quite a number of other charges, 10,000, 10,000. Do we really have to take council's time and go through piece by piece what I would consider to be relatively small amounts of money? Shouldn't we have a more sensible de minimis rule that enables people to carry forward sums of money up to $20,000 or $30,000 or $50,000, just say automatically? I mean, to have a motion to carry forward $10,000, given the size of this budget, I'm puzzled really.
Yeah, no, if I could just add, I'm not puzzled, Councillor. The reason I'm not is that if you have a rule like that, you'll find that everyone that's got 5,000 or 6,000 left in their budget will just carry it forward. And if I've got a council resolution that says that, then you're going to end up with a large carry forward. The intention of these are that managers need to front up and justify why they haven't been able to complete what they're supposed to have completed in the previous year, and discuss it. And we have a rule that nothing above is it 20 to 30,000, Manton, that comes to you. Anything under that is not.
Or a percentage of the project, which is why or a percentage of the project.
And that's not carried forward.
No, could be half a project.
No, the sum is 40,000.
Yeah.
35% has been 14,000. Some are carrying forward, and the other one's 10,500.
No, the crucial sum here is 40,000, and the recommendation to be complete refers to the associated carrying forward of revenue. Okay, it's just an associated carrying forward of revenue to make it complete.
But if I could help here, Councillor Barker, I mean, you just moved a motion before to remove 17,000 out of the budget. So it's quite important. All those bits and pieces add up over the course of the discussion there. So you wouldn't have had that opportunity if you had that particular rule you're talking about. So.
And the reality is...
I don't think it's going to take much longer to get through.
No,
yeah, box on. Okay, so notwithstanding that conversation, is there any other questions? Anyone happy to move then that we, you happy to move? Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Dick to second that. All in favour? If there's no further discussion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you.
So Project 339 is proposing to carry forward a total of 30,000 to complete wind erosion and riparian work that was incomplete during the 2015-16 period, partly because the land science team had insufficient resource to deal with the proposed Heritango catchment plan work as well as this additional work. It's relatively minor in scope and size, but nonetheless useful in the context of the other work that's going on, particularly in the Heritango.
Happy to move. You happy to second? Thank you, Councillor Pipe. No further discussion. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And to the contrary, no. Carried.
And lastly, 341 is a proposal to carry forward 40,000, of which 20,000 is to complete a project initiated in April with GNS for Awatoto source apportionment, so understanding where air quality impacts are arriving from within Awatoto, and further for completion of a review of the air quality monitoring strategy. The latter element was delayed in part because the review of the NES on air quality, which was supposed to have been completed during the 15-16 period, is now not likely to be completed until mid-2017. And we don't want to initiate our review until the NES on air quality has been reviewed by MFE.
So I'm happy to move that, actually. I think that's quite important here. Further discussion, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Councillor Graham. Okay, so we've dealt with 380. We're down to
We're down to
913.
Number
Sorry.
12? I
Yeah.
think we're into number 12.
Yes.
Number 12 on page 85, and this refers to capital items, and the first one up is for the systems integration project, which is comes out of my information communication sector. The main one here was a delay in Microsoft SharePoint, that new software being available. There has been a delay in that. We have just taken SharePoint to 2016 upgrade has just been released, so the payments will be in the new financial year, so we just roll that forward. The other 25 is a very modest sum to be moved forward. It's a modest sum, but it's a huge new system. It's the development of a new regulatory system, which is Ian Maxwell's area. It's going to be an expensive system. The 25,000 is just for part of initiation and what have you, all of which is going to fall now into the 16-17 year.
Well, this is one of his one though, isn't it?
It's one of mine.
He knows something about this.
You're happy to move, Councillor Scott. We have a second for that. Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Further discussion. I'll put.
Observation. See, therein lies a really interesting observation. We're now approving 25,000, and we're told by the Chief Financial Officer that it's part of a much bigger expenditure. So it seems that it's committed. Now, here we are making decisions about rats and mice here, but there are many bigger decisions which are already made, which we don't have any sight of. That's my point. I just don't think we've got our hands on this. Yeah, we're doing these decisions about small amounts, but there's lots of other things which are happening in the financial area which we as councillors have no sight of.
No, I beg to differ. The
Mr. Chairman, we're in debate.
We are in debate,
And I
bring it up as a question perhaps in the next one, Councillor
I
Barker.
will sum up. We are approving $115,000 carry forward. We've already approved the expenditure on this program.
Okay. Thank you. I'll put that motion, and all those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. Regional Groundwater Research Bores. I don't think we've done that one, no.
So this is the one we talked about earlier. The CapEx here, as I stated earlier, is for continuing the drilling program within the Taki Taki catchment to assist with groundwater monitoring for the Taki Taki plan change implementation. And the reason it's being sought as a carry forward is that although the work has commenced, the nature of the drilling is such that, and the arrangement of contracting was such that we're going to end up with the work partly occurring in the 16-17 year. So we're seeking to carry forward some part of that CapEx to complete the work already initiated.
Question. Are these bores being sunk into the Ruataniwha?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, okay. And the contracts are contestable?
We would have gone out for tender because they're so significant. So the contract would have been with the best price for the job that was being sought.
Yeah, but it would have gone out to tender.
Yes.
I'm just aware of a complaint from a drilling contractor that on some Ruataniwha work, that reputable contractor never had the opportunity to bid, which seems a bit strange. But that would not be the case in this case.
Not as far as I'm aware. We would go to the market for a contract of this size.
Okay, that's fine. I'll move.
Happy to move. Someone happy to second that? Thank you, Councillor Pipe. If I could take an opportunity to speak, Mr. Mohi's not here. It's Tuki, not whatever you said it was. And at my very first meeting, Mr. Mohi pulled me up on saying Wairoa instead of Wairoa, so I've come a long way, I suppose. But just Mohi. Yeah. So just see, there you go. You can't win this game, but I'm just letting you know. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No. Okay, mover, second, everyone. No further speakers. I'll put that motion, then all those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Okay, what are we on to now? 14, is it?
Oh, Mike, are you
Gauging structures.
Are you gauging structures? No, this is science capital budget.
apologise, I don't have that one in front of me. So the gauging structures will be related to providing sufficient control on the bed of a stream. I suspect that we haven't been able to install those because there's been insufficient availability of contractor time to do so this year, and it'll be a case of carrying forward the money to allow us to complete those in the early months of next year.
Sorry, where did you say that?
I don't know the detail of this one, I'm afraid. I think it might be something that might have come out of engineering.
Councillor Scott.
It does actually state that the engineers have been able to produce the required plans. Have they now produced those plans so that we do know this is going to go ahead? Or are we still seeking a solution as to how to construct the gauging site, the gauging structure?
So I'm not clear on the detail. If they haven't been able to produce the required plans, it's probably a matter of over-commitment on other projects and insufficient time. If they are able to do so, then we get those gauging structures in as soon as the plans become available.
Mr. Chairman, does Mr. Adey know anything about it?
I'll
Does
just
his team?
No, but I can clarify and come back to you on that one if you're happy to leave that sitting on the table.
Okay, how long will that take, do you think?
What's doing now?
Quarter to
Probably
12.
best if I go and try and do it now.
Okay, thank you. That would be appreciated. We'll move past that one then and on to the Raffles Street roofing, Dalton Street painting, which I suspect is Mr. Drury.
Yes, it is. 30,000 is the amount here. It was set aside for two issues. Raffles Street roofing, the roof replacement has been delayed to align with the ceiling replacement, which makes sense. We have quite a lot of staff over in our Raffles Street building now, and that roofing has been a problem for a number of years. Dalton Street painting, we've done a portion of it, but I note here that in order to minimise disruptions to staff, some of it has been moved over to the 16-17 years, so it'll be for the back stairwells and what have you. So the request there is to move those funds forward into the next year so as this work can be completed.
Okay, so you're happy to move. Thank you. We have a second for that. Thank you, Councillor Scott. Further discussion. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. Okay, HBRC charges, which I suspect is Section 36 charges. Detail of calculation.
I can run through this very quickly for you. This is a result of the consultation that took place with consent holders late last year, where they sought greater clarification, simplification and predictability with regard to Section 36 charging. And the solution is to put tables into the annual plan that allows them to calculate with reasonable accuracy what their charges are going to be for the year. So the changes to the resource management charges are in the appendices that you have at the back, and they're all red inked to show where the changes are. It basically is down to two significant ones. One is in Table 1, which is on-site water system, where the application is made in conjunction with an accredited designer, and the only change there is that the charge will be based on actual and reasonable cost, as opposed to being not applicable before and fixed at 260. And the second changes are associated, as I said earlier, with the descriptors of the Section 36 charging, and there are 4 additional tables that have been inserted into the plan. They were in the consultation document as an insert to be put in. These are the tables. There are no additional charges and costs with this change, and consent holders, as I said, have driven this to give greater clarity to what their charges are going to be. The first of those tables is water takes, where it gives by zone the dollar charge per water take, and these are the 4 types of consents. The table 4 is the hydro scheme charges, and table 5 is the discharges based on $1 per PI unit. The last table being a table that's abbreviated, showing the types of discharge and the pollution index score associated with those discharges. The pollution index score is used as a weighting or a multiplier for the dollar value. What this means is that all consent holders will be able to look at their terms and conditions of consent and be able to calculate what their Section 36 charges are likely to be.
Thank you. Questions? Well, just hang on a minute. There may be some questions. Section 36 charges generally get some people going. Councillor Bevan.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the water charges for Wairau, and it's like 3 times higher than anyone else, and in fact about 40 times higher than 1 or 2. Why is it so expensive?
The charges, if you remember in our discussions about Section 36 charging, are largely influenced by the number of consent holders that are paying for the science work, or rather 35% of it, in their zone. So the lower the number of consents, it proportionally pushes up the dollar value.
The lower the number of consents pushes up the dollar value and pushes up the phone calls to the local constituent representative, I can tell you. Other questions? So, Councillor Scott, you happy to move? You happy to second? Thank you. Further discussion? I'll put that motion, then all those in favour please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Okay, let's go back. Thank you for that good explanation. Let's now go back to the engineering question that Mr. Adie's
Yes, I
rushed
have
back in
got
with
an
the answer.
This is for 2 specific structures, one on the Papanui stream and one on the Tudaikuri Waimati. Both of those are for low flow gauging. Papanui is associated with plan change 6 and Tudaikuri Waimati with the tank process.
The question was, have we made some progress on the plans?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
fine.
And I'm happy to see it.
Thank you. Further discussion? Put that motion, then all those in favour please say aye. You've got mover and seconder there, you're all good? Okay. So, unless someone can point out a gap there, I think we've completed that section. Now, I understand, Mr. Drury, you're unavailable this afternoon, so you'd like to deal with a couple of issues first, if you could.
Leasehold rates, and perhaps we can make a start on the request for assistance from grants.
Okay, righto. So I'll you take us to whichever page you wish to start.
Mr. Chairman, this is attachment 5, which is page 31. And the and in fact, if we the next page gives the number of submitters that have indicated an option for Wellington leasehold property. You'll recall that the proposal in the annual plan was to retain the Wellington leasehold property at least for the next 2 or 3 years, and the other option, of course, was to sell. There was only one submitter out of about 20 that indicated we should sell them. Okay, and you'll recall that the reasoning for that was just merely the extent to which returns are earned on the Wellington leasehold property, which is currently yielding about 6.7%. And of course, this council can borrow at the moment. Interest rates are incredibly low. This council can borrow between 3.5 and 4%. So it's financially prudent to retain Wellington leasehold property, certainly for the next 12 to 24 months, to see where the prices track on the real estate market and what those yields are for the medium term. This has been accepted by everyone other than one that has submitted.
So questions on that? Councillor Bevan.
So is there a downside risk here anywhere? I mean, what could go wrong? Other than interest rates going up?
Yeah, I was going to say the only downside.
What's the downside risk in relation to the property itself?
In fact, there's very little downside risk, because if rates doubled, then council would then have a look at a gain of selling the Wellington leasehold property. But I can't see any downside risk. I mean, the interest rates are tipped to be low for a considerable period of time, and I think everyone is aware that residential property market is being re-rated in places outside Auckland, and Wellington is one of those places. So land is incredibly valuable, certainly where we have it in Thorndon and Kelburn. I would think it's a matter of how much it goes up, really. Yeah.
Move.
I'm happy to move that the option A, the protection of the leasehold land be adopted.
Seen that? You got the wording of that?
It's on page 33.
Well, the recommendation here is considers the submission points related.
Oh, so it is too, yeah, okay.
There's no recommendation.
No,
So the
there isn't.
recommendation, repeat that recommendation if you
The
could.
recommendation is that we approve option A, the protection of the leasehold land property.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there was overwhelming support for this, but it's it needs to be based on evidence, and the only submitter against it only raised, to quote, "there's no good reason to have it." And I think a return on investment is a very good reason to retain it. So on the strength of the information and the responses, that the sensible thing to do is to retain this leasehold land.
No further discussion. I'll put that motion in. All those in favour, please say aye. And to the contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. Right.